Hello and welcome to the RTO Show Podcast. I'm your host, Pete Shau. I've got an amazing guest today. Real quick before we get into that, make sure that you subscribe, you hit that notification bell wherever you listen to us, whether it's Spotify, whether it's Apple Podcasts, whether it's YouTube, no matter where it is, make sure you subscribe. Also, reminders, we have some sponsorship spots available going into the summer season. Please let me know. The newsletter is out. If you want to sponsor that as well, you're more than welcome. Go to the RTOshowpodcast.com. Make sure you subscribe to the newsletter and then let me know if you need anything. Also, got to tell you guys, today, probably somebody that has done more in their lifetime than I can imagine. What a great turnaround that my guest has, Mr. Mark Connelly. I can't even begin to start, Mark. You have so much going on, and I did not know how much you were a part of, but you have a conglomerate of things that you are a part of. I am so glad to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
Doing great. I'm doing really good. Thank you.
After going through my notes, I'm surprised that you have 5 minutes to talk to me. I really am. I've seen some of the stuff on here, and I'm just like, listen, guys, it's amazing. So first off, thank you for your service. Do appreciate that your service. I know that you got an 89, but no matter what time you did, it was a great service to this country, and we do appreciate that. Normally, I have when we do some of our vets, I didn't have my shirt today, so I didn't wear it, but we wear the red for Remember Everybody Deployed. That's something that Vox does, and we stick to that. We also do Wake for Warriors. This show is a very, very big proponent of making sure that we take care of our veterans, so thank you for that. So getting down to the brass tacks, how in the world does a Marine come out and do rent to own? I didn't see it, but not only have you done that, you kind of like conquered it. Like, where did that come in, and how did you get started in the rent to own space?
So after getting out, officer in the Marine Corps, 1989, I was out looking for a job and just had a baby, married, and needed a job after the Marine Corps. Never intended to stay in the Marine Corps, and so I went to a job fair. And I met a guy named Dave Dunbar, and he was the regional manager for Remco, which, he was based in Dallas. The Remco was based in Houston, and Chuck Sims was the owner of Remco. And he worked closely with Ernie Talley in Ernie Talley's early days. And Chuck Sims started his own brand and got into a whole different business model in the rent-to-own, which is a monthly business model. But Dave was there, and I talked to him and came home, told my wife, I'm going to try this out for a little bit. I'm not going to, don't think I'm going to stay in it, but I'm going to do it until I find something better.
Wait, he says that, Anthony. We're like 58 Arona stores later. He says that, right? Like, I don't want to stick into I'm just going to own half the planet, but it's okay. Don't worry about that. So you were a VP of operations for a 14-store Color Time franchise who worked at Remco. You were a part of Rent-A-Center. Where did you got in, you stayed. Where was the trajectory going? Like, was it really a thought process like, hey, I'm going into this and this is what I want to do? Or was it like, hey, this is a job, I think this is pretty good for me, and then it sprouted from there?
So it really, it truly was like, I'm going to do this until I find something else. It was, my wife hated me working on Saturdays type stuff. And I had a Monday through Friday offer, which was about 10 grand more than I was getting paid to do this. But when I started this, Pete, I had a manager named Andy Jones in Irving, Texas, was the first store I worked in. And Andy showed me his paycheck. And again, this is 1989. Andy with bonus in there, $70,000. And $70,000 in 1989 was a lot of money. Even today,
that was a lot of money.
The managers, it's a lot of money. But they paid a good percentage of profits and bonuses and things like that. And I go, and quite honestly, I said, man, if he can make this kind of money, I know I can make a lot more, because I just thought I was better than him.
Hey, listen, if you could do it, I know I could do it. Yeah, I'm kind of curious. 70,000 in what, 89 is probably what, 105, 110, right?
Yeah,
right about now? Wow. Yeah, that's a big change.
One store manager,
So before you got into ownership, you were in multi-unit, and you got into a big multi-unit situation. So you're going from Remco to some bigger companies. When did you get into the multi-unit, and then how did you end up with 320 plus stores under the Rent-A-Center flag?
Right. Okay. So, and then, so you go with Remco, and 89, 92, Rent-A-Center bought Remco, and I stayed with them. And with that, I have, Rent-A-Center also had another model called Thorn International Rental. They call it TIR stores. And so they had some of those stores in. So I ran a store for, account manager for 8 months, ran a store for 2 years. But, Rent-A-Center buys us. They offer me the region. Actually, it's a funny story, Pete. So that my boss, who's a VP, takes me to Cincinnati. My wife thinks I'm in Houston. I fly to Houston to talk to him. Hey, I want to talk to you. Hey, I want to offer you this opportunity in Cincinnati, Louisville. Let's go on a plane. We'll fly, tour the stores. My wife's still thinking I'm in Houston. In the meantime, we're flying to Cincinnati. We go tour the stores, Cincinnati, Louisville. My boss offers me the job, and I call my wife, and I go, hey, I got good news and bad news. She goes, well, what's the good news? I go, well, I just got promoted. Well, what's the bad news? Well, I'm in Cincinnati right now, and I took the job right now. So
I couldn't imagine if my wife called me like, "Hey, I'm not in Florida anymore,"
yeah.
right?
So to take that, so did that about a year, and then they with Remco, they transferred me to Chicago and gave me Chicago, Milwaukee, and were about to give me Kansas City. So about a 40 store deal, and so moved to Chicago in an apartment. My wife and kids are still in Cincinnati. And during that time, and that was about 5 months, 6 months in Chicago, the old guy named Danny Wilbanks, who's the CFO of Remco, went to Austin, Texas, and bought a 12-store Colortown franchise that became a 14-store. And so he called me and said, hey, you want to come run this Colortown, stores for us, which are, just around Texas and based in Austin, but we had Beaumont, we had Waco, Killeen, Huntsville. So we just all around Texas. I said, South Texas, on the border. And I said, sure, sounded good. Because at that time, the culture of Rent-A-Center, Remco had such a great culture. Rent-A-Center couldn't match it. It just wasn't, we just felt like Remco, I don't know, we thought we were different. We thought we were better, and we were groomed that way. And we felt we treated customers better. We had our stores are higher model, higher volume, more profitable, and things like that. And didn't mean the Rent-A-Center was bad. It just meant we thought ours was better. And just left for that reason. Ran that Colortown. We did that for about 2 years. Again, took it from 12 to 14 stores, and then Ernie Talley bought. When he was at Rent, he bought Colortown. Well, then he bought our Colortown franchise. And so then I was all of a sudden with Renter's Choice. And so during all this time, a lot of this was just, I was bought and sold a few times. We didn't have any choice. And so I drive up to Dallas and first meeting with Ernie, we have, and at that time we had 2 regional managers in our 14 stores. And both of them were really good. One was that Andy Jones, who, he was my first store manager. The other one was a guy named Brent Gregor, who's still a partner with me today. And we've been working together and best friends. And I was in his wedding, and we've been hanging out for that long. 35 years. We've been working together as store managers, multi-unit. And he was a regional director with Rent-A-Center. So had those 2 guys working with me, and then we go to Renter's Choice. We go up there, and then so they're telling Brett and Andy, hey, they got regions. They would do this, and they're going to have this region. I go, well, Ernie, what about me? He does this big spiel. Hey, you have any questions? And I go, well, yeah. What about me? I'm hearing what these guys are getting. I'm not hearing what I'm getting. And he goes, well, we'll give you a. We'll give you a region somewhere. We'll give you a market somewhere. I mean, that was it. Ernie was just so to the point and wasn't a lot of explanation. And he goes, are there any questions? I go, yeah, I got a question. And all his VPs are there. And he goes, well, what's the question? I go, well, you need a 1-day notice, 30-day notice. What do you need? Because for me, there was no respect there. Just didn't approach her. Didn't find out anything about me. And by the way, our Colortown store and Renter's Choice had probably the best standards in the industry as far as collections. We were kicking their butt with our stores, and I'm sure he saw those numbers. So he just didn't. So I did. I went and left, and he said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll pay you to the end of the month. Go ahead and go. So I got up, and that was my first meeting with Ernie Talley, and I
Wow.
stood up, walked out, and found another job at Rent-Mart. And I don't know if you know Rent-Mart. So Ford Motor Company owned a company called the Associates. Associates owned Rent-Mart, started Rent-Mart, and based in Texas. And then we started opening Rent-Mart stores. Well, we're into that, and Rent-Mart they were the first group that said, we don't need to verify. We have 2-3 references is enough. And I go, guys, you guys are messing up really bad. You got to do a better job than this. And we're going inner city Houston. I had Houston, Austin, Waco, all those same areas. And it wasn't that long. And they opened 40, 50 stores in like a year, all from ground up. They had that much money. It moved so fast. And then they just saw how much money you had to put in it. And so they sold the errands. And so I'm like, I don't want to work for the errands, and didn't really want to do that at that time. And then moved, and it's a company called Central Rents. Another guy that worked for Remco, Steve Pearson was his name. So he said, hey, Mark, I have 40, 50 stores back in the Cincinnati area. And I said, I'll take it. And so, and we love Cincinnati, moved back to Cincinnati, took my wife.
Wait. How often did you move? Like, how does your wife not go, we're not moving again?
Well, every 2 years. We never, I probably, my wife got used to it, my kids, there's some trauma with that with your family. Your kids get into sports, and then you move in the middle of the season, they kind of lose interest, or they get left behind and stuff like that. And that kind of happened. That was the downside of that. But I was always a person, if you gave me a promotion or an opportunity, I was like, yep, I'm taking it.
You were going to take it.
Today, that's not so easy with people, right? Hey, I just need you to run this store on the other side of the city. Oh, that's too far. I don't want to drive an hour. And so those were the things that were, kind of happening. And then that's kind of what happened. And what's funny is, so I go up to Central Rents, and I don't know, I'm probably there 3 months, 4 months. So Ernie bought so it runs Central Rents. Ernie Talley buys that 3 months into my job.
Right back around.
Right back. Renter's Choice buys Central
Mark,
Rents.
did they just get rid of you? Mark, what happened? I just finished paying you. 3 months later, you're back on the payroll. How did
a couple of years later, after these other deals. So I called Mark Spees, who was their president, and I go, Mark, am I going to go through this again? Because I'm not going to stay here and keep working for you guys if it's just going to be the same deal. And he goes, Mark, no, we need you. This is 200 stores we're buying. We need good people. We made a mistake kind of losing you that first time. We need you to stay. And I stayed. And so Renter's Choice bought us. It wasn't, I bet it was 4-6 months later, they bought Rent-A-Center. So Renter's Choice went from 500 stores, bought Central Rents, went to 700 stores, and then Rent-A-Center's 1,400 stores. And so at 500 to 700 to 1,400, Ernie did it that quick.
It was huge. I was there during that I worked for Renter's Choice probably for about a year before they had bought, before they acquired Rent-A-Center. And it was crazy because, at that point in time, I didn't know as much as I know now. I was just like, I know that they're the bigger guys on the block. But Ernie Talley was not, he was just, dude, he was a bulldozer. He was just going to take, and he was going to take it all if he could.
Got it done.
And it was huge. It was huge at that point in time.
He paid people well. He paid the managers way more than anyone else at that time. And he knew the value of that side of the business. And so he buys Central Rents, or then he buys Rent-A-Center, and then with the fallout of that, became more opportunities. And so I went from, and Renter's Choice called him regional vice president. Well, he flew me to Dallas, and I go to Dallas and do a little interview, and they offered me a regional vice president position over all the Midwest. So I went from running those 40 stores, did that for a little bit right after they bought us. And then I had, 300 something stores in the Midwest, and then did that for a couple of years. And then a couple of years later, they gave me Northeast, another 320 stores in the Northeast as a senior vice president.
Anthony, I just want you to know, I got like 300 stores. Oh no, they're gonna give me some other 300. It's not a big deal. It's just 300 stores. 320 plus stores is what I counted. Dude, that is huge. We're talking about some dealers who would love to just have that, not necessarily just that part of it, but just to have that. That's an amazing feat. Let me ask you something. Are you getting everything out of your rent-to-own business? If you're not an A-Pro member, then the answer is probably no. Look, advocacy is A-Pro's bread and butter. This is why they were created and what they do best. But here's the thing, A-Pro membership is about way more than advocacy. A-Pro connects you to the movers and the shakers of the industry, people who've been there, done that, and they can help you do it even better. A-Pro's monthly webinars give you expert insights and actionable takeaways. It's like having a masterclass for your business every single month. Got questions about complex regulations or sticky situations? No problem. A-Pro's legal hotline gives you direct access to experts who have got the answers. That's a peace of mind that you can't put a price on. And let's not forget the resources, news, updates, and tools that keep you ahead of the curve. Scholarships for your team? Check. Disaster relief when you need it most? Double check. A-Pro is your ultimate support system in the rent-to-own world. So stop settling for less. With A-Pro, members get more. More support, more connections, more success. Head over to rtohq.org and join the A-Pro family today. Because in this business, more isn't just better. It's essential. See you at the top with A-Pro. Now, so how much of the Marine came out in you that got you these stores? Was it the performance? Was it the drive? Was it like, you know what, I'm just going to make this happen? Like where was the mindset to make 320 stores happen over, not that long ago, we were running 14 Color Time stores.
Yeah.
Now you're running 320. I mean, that's a huge, that's a huge multiplier.
Well, so I would say, so all of that. So number one, you have a wife and a family that support you, right?
Yeah.
You can't go through that many moves and do those things without that support. And I've seen a lot of good people like that I thought would be really great managers, and if they didn't have the support of their, and this goes both ways, wives or husbands. If you don't have the support of that, it just breaks down. It doesn't work, or
right,
or they get divorced. I've seen a lot of people get divorced in this industry because people the hours back then weren't great.
Well, they were brutal. That's true.
The 54-hour work week. Our standard week was a 54-hour work week, not a 40-hour work week. And so I grew up in Normal, but yeah, big part. My dad, huge part of that. He was a former Marine also, and he'd wake me up every morning, 6, 7 o'clock, and there wasn't. You can get up later. I'm going to come back later. It's like, get up right now, And then he'd come in and boom, I'd jump up and I'm going to work, And so I think he was the Marine Corps. Absolutely, what they taught you, and going through officer candidate school, you just have a lot of, when you go through that situation, Pete, they teach you to be in that combat situation. Never was, God bless, I was. And, the other thing, Pete, is, it's a God thing. I think everything happens for a reason. And, my younger years, I wouldn't say that. Today, I've been very blessed by, because of that faith. And then that faith has grown over the years. And a matter of fact, I tell people, and they go, because they know me, I'm still a party guy, still drink, I do that, but I'm not a bad guy. I've been married 40 years this August, and
congratulations. Congratulations.
But I've been reading the Bible, and again, Brent brought me into that. I've read the Bible every day for probably the last 15, 16 years. So that's why I think that's a big part of what I've done. And again, the Marine Corps, yeah, they teach you to be in those kind of combat situations. Decisions you make as an officer affects whether people live or die. And so when I came into rent-own, I'm like, this is easy compared to that, right? The pressure for that, if I make a bad decision, I got to, call some Marine's wife and say, hey, your husband died because of my decision.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of what they put you through that. So once you get through that, you go through that training. There's just nothing else. There's nothing more important than people. And so that, if you take that mindset into this industry and take care of your people and just, you owe it all to them. And that's what my drive was, is, the success for me wasn't what I did. I mean, it was early on, Pete, but it was really, how many other people can I get promoted? How many people can I get to a store manager level, multi-unit manager, CP level? And that's what I love doing.
Well, so Mark, help me out. Like, as you're going through all this, how did you go from having that Northeast region from Rent-A-Center to being with Arona?
Okay, so this can be, and then this is the absolutely true story, Pete. And so, and it's weird, and people don't understand it, but it's just, again, it's a principle thing, right? It's so that Northeast region, by the way, I don't know, 350, 400 million in revenue, 20, probably 22, 23% profit. And,
Oh,
and so
jeez.
ran big stores, killed my budget, beat all that at the end of the year. And as a senior VP, we have pretty good bonuses. So our max bonus was 100 grand. And so we had a regional director meeting that, they came in and we had a trainer kind of come up there and started talking to all our regional directors. And they were in one of my stores, by the way, the highest volume store in the country, 800,000 in profit on an annual basis, most profitable store in the company. And the trainer goes in there and comes back and he's just trashing all the things that store did wrong, like in front of the whole group. And I took it personal. I overreacted, by the way. And I go, and I love the guy. And I really should have sat back, walked out of the room, took a breath. And that's what you're supposed to do. But I just, at that point in my life, I wasn't quite like that. And so I stood up, I go, Joe, and I maybe said the F word or something like that. I said, I don't know what you're doing here with the store. You should be going to that store, finding out what they are doing, and let's share that with this group and not what they're not doing. Everything's about what they're not doing, negative, And he wasn't,
Right.
He didn't intend to do that, Pete. He's a great guy. And, but that's the way I took it. And so bonus time came. Instead of getting my $100,000, they gave me $97,000. I mean, they cut me $3,000, and all my other senior vice presidents got the 100 grand. And I go, that's it. I'm looking for another job. And so Charles Smith gone, a long time during those Remco days when I lived in Cincinnati, he was opening his first stores in Louisville and ran a great, huge Aaron's franchise. He tried to recruit me to go to Louisville to open his first store. And I go, Charles, I can't go from 40 to 1. And so didn't do it. And I called as soon as, I left that meeting and got a $97,000 bonus. I called Charles Smith, go, hey, you need me now? And so he came and talked to me, but at that time he had already hired Dave Edwards, and Dave was doing a great job for him. So really didn't need both of us. And so he hooked me up with a guy named Tom Bernal. Tom Bernal at that time had 5 Aaron stores in the based in Des Moines. And so Tom called me. Tom flew to, we met in Grapevine, Texas, and where I lived at that time, because Rent-A-Center was based in Dallas. And by the way,
Right.
Ernie, here's another funny story about Ernie. So all of us senior VPs wanted to keep the name Renter's Choice. Again, culturally, all that. And Ernie kind of wanted to. Well, when Ernie saw the price tag of changing signs for the 1,400 Rent-A-Centers to Renter's Choice, instead of changing the 500, Rent-A-Center to Renter's Choice stores, he goes, no, we're going to be Rent-A-Center.
Yeah. Well, I thought Rent-A-Center home office was in Plano, Texas.
It is. Rent-A-Center is in Plano, Texas. I lived in Grapevine, Texas.
Okay.
And so yeah, they're always in Plano. But before that, they were up in Kansas, Wichita, before they moved it.
Now, I am curious because I've seen it and I just want to know. I see Arona, I see Aaron's. They are very similar with the placement of an A.
Yeah.
Did you do that on purpose?
So no, so Tom Bernal. So if Arona would, and I didn't know this going in. I just thought, again, we're always Aaron's, but we're Arona Corporation, DBA Aaron's. Well, when Aaron's went public the first time, the stock was called ARONA, Arona ARONA. And so Tom used that name Arona as his company name when he became an Aaron's franchise. And so when we left Aaron's, which was a mutual thing, and it was nice, and there was, very still friends with them, still talk to, just matter of fact, had a conversation with their president this last week. And so we're still very friendly, and we came to terms and said, hey, we got to go this way. You guys are kind of staying in this, going this way. And we managed to exit that system and become Arona Home Essentials. So we just switched all our Aaron's names to Arona Home Essentials at that time.
So one thing that I really wanted to get into especially in this podcast, because you have such a background. It's diverse. You've been a part of a lot of companies. You've had multi-unit. You've gone small, big. You've seen the big guys take bigger guys. You've been acquired and gone out of that, going into Arona and then beyond that, which we'll get into that in a few minutes. You know, the entrepreneurial spirit that you have, regardless of being shifted around, regardless of what part of the country you're in. I mean, Mark, you've kind of laid a footprint and it's just grown. I mean, it's literally grown into a very large part of what we do and more and what other people do. I mean, 58 stores is not, you know, when we're talking about 1,400 stores and 500, 58 stores is quite an accomplishment, regardless of the fact. And as from what I hear, I mean, Arona's got an amazing culture. I know right now that, you know, I've interviewed some of your people. They love being here, you know, and doing what you do. When you started that journey, and now that you're at Arona and you were we're at 58 now. When was that, and how did you really come up with the idea, like, we need to scale, we're going to grow? What were the bumpers and the things that you came across that you said, you know, once we cross this plateau, we're going to have more, we're going to become more, and then, you know, the trigger point to literally go outside of rent-to-own? Because we've been talking nothing but rent-to-own, but your portfolio has more than rent-to-own stores, which is another reason why I want to talk to you, because I mean, you know, people in rent-to-own are very entrepreneurial. They have that spirit. They want to grow. They want to do what they can. Now, what I've seen in some is they'll either branch out and do another rent-to-own, or they do a tire and wheel. You went a completely different, you have literally different companies, or different parts of the company that do different things. And I really wanted to get into that. Where did the growth from Arona come from? And then what triggered you to go into other businesses?
So, two big reasons. Number one, Tom Bernard, he's our principal owner. He calls myself and Brent partners with him, and we are. He treats us as complete partners. And he's always had it. Now, when we signed with Aaron's, we had 11 store development. And when I went to Des Moines, I said, Tom, I'm gonna help you get this 11 stores, and I want to cash out in 5 years and move back to Texas. So so that was 23 years ago, Pete. So, or 22 years ago. So those things change. It was funny. I was going to just take that one job until I got something better. And then I was going to stay up in Des Moines for 5 years. And here I am. I lived there 17 years, still working with him. But Tom's always been the driving force. He just has this vision of doing all these other things. And he grew up, and you go back to, multi-generate. His dad was a Harvard graduate. His grandfather still owned businesses. So way into his 90s, his dad ran banks into his 90s, owned his banks. And they just worked. They worked forever. And so Tom's always had that drive. And then as we were growing Arona, and so we were growing that, we did our new stores in the areas we had, but the best way to grow is just buy other Aaron's franchisees or Aaron's corporate stores. So, for example, we bought South Florida all from Aaron's corporate. We bought 10 stores at one time from Aaron's corporate.
Oh, wow.
They were struggling down there. South Florida's a tough market. And so that gave us that opportunity. We bought a franchisee in Michigan. We bought some franchisees in Missouri. And so that's kind of, and then we still do new stores. We do a couple new stores in Puerto Rico. And so we, that's kind of what we did on the Arona side. And it's 48 stores, Pete, not 58.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is it 48? I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay.
So
when we were about 17 stores, Pete, and then we just bought some more corporate stores in Nebraska. I think it was 6 stores in Omaha and Link, all those areas of Nebraska. And Brent Gregorick, who was also a regional director with Rent-A-Center, ran his own Aaron's franchise with some investors. They sold back to Aaron's corporate. And I go, Brent, you got to come back and join us. And he did. And that just put us on steroids, because he's, just an amazing operator, amazing, great with people, like you said. And so because of us three, Tom, myself, and Brent, we just, we did everything. We did the real estate. We did the marketing. We did, we did the legal work. And we grew it to a point where today we have people that do all that. But really, up until about 4 or 5 years ago, Pete, we didn't have any of that. We just did it ourselves. And I really think we were lucky again, call it a blessing. We got by. We were negotiating leases and reading them, and we're like, yeah, this is okay. And we didn't know if they were okay or not. We didn't have the legal background. But Tom was a lawyer, so so we always had that check and balance on that side. But we also grew beyond where, he couldn't do all that. We had so much going on that it was just hard to keep up with. And so those are the two things, Tom and Brent, Tom, Brent, and Mark. It's a that three-legged stool.
Well, you talk about successes. I have that there at one point in time, Arona was listed as one of the fastest growing companies from 2009 to 2014. What was it like to really go from being sold, moving, growing, being sold, moving, growing, and then on your own? Well, I don't want to say on your own, but as the group that you just mentioned now, to be able to say we're one of the fastest growing companies for almost 5 total years listed, somebody actually recognized that we were just on the move and making it happen. I mean, how does that make you feel knowing that you're on the right track?
Well, so when you look in my office, I have all those plaques in my office, top 500 or top 5,000 fastest growing companies. And, and when you go from 6 to 12, that's a big jump. You go from 12 to 20. And when you have those kind of jumps and you buy 10 stores at one time, when you're 17 stores, then you buy 10, all of a sudden you're 27, then you're 27, you buy 10, you're 30. Those are big jumps. And it's kind of, today it'd be harder unless we, bought a 40 or 50 store, we could do that again. So we haven't really tracked that as much as we did in the past, but that was fun. It was just fun doing that, celebrating those wins with our team. So.
Well, I mean, it's great to be recognized. You mentioned 5 years. You mentioned that you were going to get in, you're going to do 5 years, you're going to cash out after so many stores. I in some of my research, was that the 5-year promise that you made to your wife, that after your 5 years you were going to kind of call it, and then it just kind of blew past?
Yep. That's exactly what happened. You get, the game's fun, Pete, right? You look at, how many, you're a Tampa guy. You love the fact that Tom Brady didn't quit when he did, and he came to Tampa.
Oh, God, yes. Oh, God. Listen, I don't care who says what. I am so good. Anthony knows. I am so glad he came over here and got a championship. Yes. You know what? You can say what you want to.
Just one.
Right? And listen, I'm a Gronk fan, too. I was so glad to see them come and at least do that one time for Tampa Bay. Because, puts it, Belichick, I'm sorry, dude. It wasn't you all the way. I mean, Brady's just a player and a half. He had a great team. And you know what? I mean, they complained a little bit.
Yeah. And it wasn't about money at that, right? So no, it's never about money anyway. When I was young, it was always about money. It was my own awards, manager of the year. All those that meant a lot. Bonuses. Remco, I got a $10,000 bonus for being manager of the year. It was an awesome experience. It was great.
Wow.
But the older you get, it's not about, it's about being in the game. It's about working with the people that you truly love. They're truly teams, and they become your extra family, and they truly are. Brent, we call him, he's my brother. He's not a coworker. He's we're in each other's families. He's my daughter's godfather. I'm his daughter's godfather. So that's just the way, and you don't want to leave those people. The game's fun, the competition's fun, the team's awesome, and then your family, and so you kind of just stay in it until those things go away. If it's not fun, or there's a time, I guess, we're all going to get old where we can't keep doing it, and that will happen to all of us someday. But as long as it's fun and it's you're growing and you're enjoying it and you're working, and it's this industry has done a lot for my family. It's put all my kids, all my kids are successful, put kids through college, but my wife and and myself, houses along the way. And we've been very blessed because of this.
Let me ask you a question, because, you mentioned other people before. You said that Brent was an excellent operator. You said that Ernie Talley was straight to the point. He was the guy who went out and got it. He acquired it. He grew it. What is Mark Connelly's claim to fame? What led you to your success? What was that, one or two things that you say, this is what I did, and I was good at that. That was my personality. That was the driver that helped me lead to my success.
Yeah. So I think probably more than anything, again, going back to the Marine Corps, what it taught me, it's all about people. And I think, I think probably one of my strongest traits, and I think this is why I was promoted really early as a store manager. I did almost all the recruiting for the region, and so did Brent, by the way. So Dave Dunbar, who was our regional manager, he took us to every job fair. He did, anytime it was, hey, recruiting somebody, interviewing somebody, it went through myself and or Brent. And he taught us, as young managers, how important people were. And so Pete, I'd hire somebody, bring them in, and I'd train them, and Dave would take them out and give them another store. But I'd hire somebody else and bring them in and send them. And I just knew as long as you kept bringing in great people, everything's, company's going to grow, your store's going to grow, and your customers are going to still love you. And there's always that, wow, what's going to happen? Your customers love these people. But as long as they're great people, and I caught on really quick to that, Pete. I knew how to interview and hire good people. And when I, not that I was perfect, but I also was one of those that if I made a mistake and didn't hire right, I would fire right too. I would make people, they'd have dignity, but I'd have to let them go. Hey, this is just not the industry for you. I thought it was, maybe you thought it was. Man, you're going to be so good doing this or something like this. You can't do this. You just can't. It's not fair to you or me or any of the other people around here to keep you here. And I'd take them along, and I'd still do that. And years later, I've had a couple people come back and knock on, hey, Mark, thank you. That was the best thing that could have happened to me. I moved on to a different career that been very successful, and as much as it hurt me during that time. And so I think just the people side, Pete, I think I was just always really good at that, just because I valued that. It just that's inside me who I was, and that's the upbringing my parents gave me. So,
well, I want to walk off the beaten path for just a second, because you bringing all these people on and being able to see sometimes within people what they don't even see for themselves, and being able to pick the right people to be in the right places. That's actually a very good leadership trait, a management trait. Give me like a little detail. You're sitting across from somebody. What are some of the tells that you would say, you know what, I know this guy or this gal is going to be right for the rent-own industry, or you know what, I think you're going to be right, but maybe not for this industry. What were your tells? How did you go about it and decide?
I don't know. So I'll go back to, again, I'm store manager in Dallas. I go run Cincinnati, Louisville, tore that with the VP. And I think there were 6 stores, 7 stores. Oh, actually, I'll even go beyond that. Same story. I go to work for Tom on these errands stores. Right. So he's got 6 stores. Take the initial tour. We come back. Tom goes, how'd it go? I go, well, Tom, I said, went well, but what's going to happen is your best store manager is probably going to be our worst store manager, and the other 5 I'll replace and within the next 3 or 4 months. And because I just knew they weren't, and it's a gut feeling that you get. You've been in the industry long enough. You work with people, and you see how they interact with customers. To me, if I'm looking for a person, if that door opens and somebody just doesn't instinctively look at that customer, greet that customer, drop everything to greet and talk to that customer, there's something wrong. That's not the person or people that I want in a store. And so it doesn't. And so those are you just kind of can see. Store could be. Again, I promoted a manager one time in Des Moines, and, one day there's this big screen TV that came in for service. I come in a week later, that TV's still sitting at the front of the store. Seriously, I don't need to talk to somebody about stuff like that. I just don't. I can't coach. I can't coach that. Don't want to coach that. I'm not going to, I can't work on personality, and I can't work on work ethic, right? If you don't bring those 2 to the game, there's not a lot I could do for you, so I can't help you. But if you bring those, I'll do anything for you. As long as you're willing to go and work and things like that, then I'll do anything for you. But you got to do that. And so you just get it. You just kind of get over the experience of working with people for that long. You just kind of get a sense of, but you also might see somebody on the sidelines go, man, that person's really, really sharp. And they're not running the show, but they got something in them that I could just tell by the way they're talking or asking questions or conversing with the customer. And I'm like, let's work, man, let's get them trained. Let's get them into some leadership program. So those are the things you're just always looking for.
Was there ever one of those, was there ever one of those questions that were like, this is the go-to question that I have, or something, an exercise that you did with any of your in your interviewees that you were like, I pretty much do this in almost all, maybe not all, but almost all of my interviews, just to kind of give me a feel, a special question, a comment, some kind of workbook thing or anything?
It's not really. I mean, it's, we're out again, and rent would be the same way. So we're in Remco. There's not another company today that spends the money that Remco did on training. And I'm talking Mark Connelly courses, the Disney Vance, Mike Vance. I mean, we had all those. The management program for that company was 19 days. You'd go down to Houston. That was all across. Wow. You go down to Houston for 19 days and go through these training courses, and they just made a huge emphasis on the people side, and so I think I just brought a lot of that without, we don't have a 19-day training. We're on the job and we're just seeing what's going on, and just a lot of contact. But and one of the probably some advice I got from a guy named Robert Harris, was a VP, and so we're going around like Cincinnati, Louisville. He goes, Mark, you can't fix every store at once. You just can't. You got to start with one. You got to get it fixed. Get the people, get the credit, get the gain, get all the things in place. And he goes, and then you can start with that, and say it's a week or two or whatever you got to do, and then go to the other one. And then a year, and instead of because I was bouncing around a lot as my first multi-unit, I was just jumping, trying to fix everything. Well, he said, Mark, stay put. And think about it. If you got 7 stores in 7 weeks, where you would be if you spent a week in every one of those stores, instead of bouncing around, spending 2 hours here, 3 hours there, half a day there, day there. I mean, driving all around, and he goes, just think of where I go, wow. So, then at that time, Pete, and so what I just did, I just said, you know what, and similar deal that when I walked into Aaron's, but when I walked into those, I just knew out of those 6 stores, I needed to replace 4 to 5 of the managers. So I went and hired 5 great people, and not, hired more than that in other positions, but 5 potential managers that I said, these 5, I need to ramp them up, because I don't have time to wait, and I'm not a very patient person on, stores not performing. And so
right.
I'm like, and so anytime, and it was kind of bad, Pete, because I'd say, hey, guys, on your day off, I want you to spend time with me, and I'll be in any store, and I will work on anything we all, with that store. So you can be with me. It could be merchandising a store. It could be, working accounts. It could be doing this, but you're all going to be with me. And while I'm doing some of these things, and I made them all under. If you want to do that, great. If you don't want to do it, that's okay too. But I'm just trying to get you promoted as fast as you can, and because all of you will be replacing some of these other managers I got right now, because they don't have it. They're good people. They're going to treat you right and all that. But I need you to personally spend time with me so I could show you all these things. And then I, again, Dave Dunbar, when I first took over, I brought them up to Cincinnati to help me kind of run the stores when I was out recruiting, because I had to go spend a lot of time recruiting. And I was fortunate enough to have good friends in the business that would help me run the day-to-day stuff while I was out building a team. And they would help train them too. I'd hire them and put them in those stores. So, now there's a downside to that, Pete. So you got 5 people that you spend a lot of time with. You got one opening, and all of a sudden you take one that you consider is the best at that time, and so you plug that person in, and so you might make a mistake there, but it's still way better than what you had. But you might piss off one of the ones you didn't promote that thinks they're better than that 5, and so that's the risk of that. But it was definitely, I lost a really good person that I thought probably was number out of those 5. She was probably 2 or 3 on that list. My number 1 was my number 1, and I promoted him, and she got mad and left. So, and she would have had the very next stop. She would have had it. Yeah. But it just happened to be the store that she worked in where I promoted the guy, and so she got mad at me because that was the store she was working in, and he. To this day, he kicked butt, and if she would have stayed, she would have been promoted next, and she would have been running great stuff. So, but
I mean, Mark, we can't win them all, right? I mean, we do the best we can with what we have. Hey everyone, it's Pete Shau here from the RTO Show Podcast, and I want to tell you about a company that's making a real difference in the rent-to-own space, Wow Brands. I've seen firsthand how they approach marketing, and let me tell you, it's not just about ads. Wow Brands builds complete digital ecosystems designed specifically for the rent-to-own industry. Their e-commerce and lead generation strategies are built to bring in qualified leads. And did I mention that they are actively working with the rent-to-own industry while also being members of APRO and TRIB? Listen, these folks are passionate problem solvers. They don't just slap something together. They design, build, and scale the kind of digital retail tools your business needs and your customers actually want. So if you're serious about growing, reach out to Wow Brands at wowbrands.com. I trust them, and I think you will too. I think in most cases, Arona would be enough, but BCP now includes Valvoline's real estate, restaurants, car lots, finance company, which we're going to talk about the finance company, and a marathon. That is a huge portfolio. How did it go that far outside of rent to own? Because again, what we're talking about for the last 40 minutes has been rent to own. This is rent to own is how we do, but you have now included all of these other businesses and what you do. How do you maintain, because rent to own is a very involved business. How do you maintain being involved in rent to own and still actively, successfully running these other businesses?
So again, it goes back to the people you get to run those. But it starts out, so you look at Arona, we start out, so, hey, let's just own our own locations. Aaron's really kind of wanted standalone stores, bigger, footprints, and again, this is where Tom comes in. Hey, let's buy. So we started buying real estate, or if leases were coming up, hey, let's buy real estate. Let's move our stores into that. And so we just started growing the real estate business from that initially. Tom also had a Globe loan, but he did have a subprime finance company prior at the same time, very small scale, but he had that before. And so we kind of had that all along, but then we started morphing into real estate. And then, on the Valvoline, we had a guy come in that Tom had knew. He came into our office one time, and this Valvoline company just went, I don't know, they were 35, 40 store. They went bankrupt, and they were going through this guy came, hey, you guys could buy the stores in Des Moines area. And so we bought 5 Valvoline stores in Des Moines, and out of bankruptcy. And so we said, we'll start with that. And so today so that's how it started. We went back and bought the rest of that company. We bought the other 35 stores 2 years later. And then we start, and then we just, and so now today, yesterday we bought 2 more. That puts us at 89 in that business beat. And so we'll be, with what we're building right now, without any other acquisitions, which I hope we get, another acquisition or 2, but we'll be 94, 95 by the end of this year, just on what's in our, and just what we've already bought the ground, started building, things like that, just new stores, de novo type store. And so, restaurant, Tom bought a Hickory Park. It's called Hickory Park Barbecue. It's probably the largest volume restaurant in the state of Iowa. It does $10 to $12 million in revenue on an annual basis in a barbecue restaurant fee. It's a machine, but we have a lady named Tracy. Tracy worked for the previous owner, and she's an amazing operator. She knows everything about that business. She's still with us, and so when you look at and so then again you look at other, so now the real estate, 140 locations, banking, I think it's 8 bank charters, 8 smaller banks that are under our umbrella now. That's where Tom's, sadly Tom's dad passed away, but so now that's under our umbrella. The Des Moines Marathon, one day, just a one event thing that Tom bought, gosh, I don't know, 12 years ago, something like that, and wasn't really making money. I think I can't even tell you how many races we have under that umbrella. I think it's, we own some and we manage some for other people, but I think it's 20 something races, maybe even more, Pete. I don't really spend any time on that. Brent kind of spends more time in all these other businesses where now I've moved into the merger acquisition side, and Brent, and then Brent hired a guy named Shannon Griffith. He's a great operator to run our Valvoline. We got Tracy running that. So we got it at Pet Supply Plus, 2 years ago. Bought we bought 7 stores, and then opened one last year before, and then we bought 2 in Chicago last year, and now we're in the process of buying 4 to 5 more. So we'll be 15 of those here probably by June, and that's just, it just starts with one. But the key is you buy them that are currently operating, and you have good leadership in place on those. Our Pet Supply Plus business, a lady named Susie, who was a partner with another guy running those, well, she stayed with us, and now we're growing that business. So if you could buy a current business that's successful, profitable, has a good leadership team that comes with it, and hopefully it's somebody wanting to retire, just get out of the business, retire or whatever, but the operators stay, then we want to look at that. That's kind of Tom's more, and it's just diversified, and it's helped during those COVID times, during things like that. Pete, like during COVID, that restaurant, with 250 employees in that restaurant, by the way.
Wow.
Part-time, it's in a college town, but, and Brent had to go up there during COVID, and, when the state shut us down, we had to let everyone go. All of a sudden, then we started opening for, pickup service, things like that. Things started coming back. Now we're back to full service, and I still don't think we're back to 250, but I think we could probably bring that many in if we could hire that many. So
I mean, that's
every business is like having a story like that.
So you have all this, you're a part of all this. You
Right.
wake up Monday morning. What does your week look like? What does a week in Mark Connelly's life look like with all this going on?
Yeah. So again, every company has a chief operating officer. So they're doing their own meetings. Now we have what we call it BCP, Bernal Capital Partners. We have a meeting every Monday, 9:30 a.m. and we all talk about what we're working on. So me being the merger acquisition guy, I'll talk about, hey, here's some deals coming up, working on this, working on that. There's Pet Supply Plus here. There's rental. We just bought an equipment rental business, by the way, the 17th of this month, our first venture in equipment rental. And so, again, it comes with a great operator, good business model. We really thought some of those products we could do something in the Arona side. Maybe not. I think it's still a completely separate business, but that's a big business. And so we start with one and with a good leadership, and we want to grow it. So we'll talk about those things. We have our general counsel now. We, again, think about, I think we have 1,800 employees, Pete, in a year and a half, 2 years ago, it was 1,400 employees. And so that's how fast we're growing now. And so we got a general counsel in-house, and again, Brent and I handled all that for the longest time. And so we got a great general and CFO over all that, and manages all the money, banking relationships, all HR, VP of HR, Amy Lynn. She's been with us for years, and she's our rock star in our whole in our company. And then we got a VP of real estate now, because our real estate holdings, and with all the leases, we got to have that going on. And so, and just think on the real estate side, you got to refinance every 5 years. You don't sign 20-year fixed rates on real estate. It's every 5 years you got to re-up those. And so with 140, just divide that by 5, that's how many you got to refinance. So you got to have great CFO, great banking relationships, great partners. And we think everything's, kind of like our vendors are partners, Pete. And so all those people that help us are partners with us, and we treat them that way. And it goes back to the people side of everything. So, but it's still, constant.
I just couldn't imagine. I mean, that's an amazing day. So if you're in the merger and acquisitions, how do you come across the deals that you do to bring it to the partners and go, I think this is a good idea? Like, where does it come from?
So, in the rent-to-own, it's just the relationships that I've built over the years. It's easy. I know enough, and really being part of APRO, being part of TRIB, and going to those meetings, you're always, and people will come up to you and say, hey, you guys interested in buying this many stores, or that you want to do this, and so that's kind of the relationships that I built and other people have built over the years, that you stay in the know on that. Valvoline is very similar now. Valvoline has an annual meeting. So I go to those, and I'm talking to every Valvoline franchise. Hey, if you ever, especially the ones with gray hair like mine, a little older, I go, hey, if you ever, you start with that, right? Because that just makes sense. They're going to retire. They're going to, and just, hey, if you ever anytime you want a part and you want somebody to run, we'd be your exit strategy. And then, and I get a list, like on the quick lubes, I'll get a list of quick lubes in our areas, the mom and pops, and, I'll send them an email if or if there's a phone number, I'll call them, try to get the owner's name. And Valvoline, as a partner, they do a lot of that. They go out and knock on doors. They have people that, knock on doors all around the country, but in our area and they'll send us leads. And so, and then, just Tom has great relationships, very successful business people that will talk to him and they know what he's about. And so they'll say, hey, you want to buy, like, there's a music company that was for sale. Tom, you want to do this? And so, heck, we got a construction company now that because our valve, we have to build so many, we said, it makes sense to just build it ourselves. And so that construction company was last year and it's already profitable. It made money its first year. So
wow,
it's just, those are the things you just got.
What are we doing, Anthony? I feel like I'm not doing enough.
We're doing something wrong.
I feel like there's so much more left on the table. Have you ever thought about the tire and wheel? I don't know. Have you ever thought about the tire and wheel business now that we're talking about that? I don't know. I'm just curious. Have you ever
thought about it?
I mean, they're pretty profitable businesses. I don't know if we're going to shed a light to that one. I mean, coming into the end, I kind of feel like I haven't done enough with my life, Anthony. I got to do more. When I look at what you've done, Mark, it's amazing with the group that you're with and the things that you were able to accomplish. Being able to come from the humble beginnings to having this long-term relationship with your wife, which, number one, that is a blessing. That's something more important than anything else, your faith, and then being able to be a part of what you're being a part of. That's amazing. And it was great to see you in DC, by the way, just to say, we did see Mark in DC, which was a great time. If you guys haven't been to LegCon, I'm going to tell you, and yes, I am a spokesperson, but I'm going to tell you, LegCon is amazing. You need to go and advocate for the industry because this is how we stay alive, especially what's going on right now in New York and a couple other states. You always want to advocate. You want to always be on the front end of that, and that's the way to do it. So think about LegCon 2027, and then if you have any questions, you can always ask Mark how he's doing because he's doing great right now. Apparently,
you said what that I've done. It's what we've done. And again, I go back to Tom, Brent, and Mark, and then our team. Jason, who runs our rent-own, Shannon runs our, Valvoline. Tracy that runs the restaurant, and Susie runs the pet supply. They all have a name, and they're all just great people. And it's and plus all that, the general counsel, the CFO, the VP real estate, our VPH. It's all of that. You can only do it with that kind of group.
Well, congratulations to them and what they're doing. Quite amazing. I'm going to say, Mark, quite amazing. Love to hear it. Listen, I want to ask you some quick questions, and I just want to get your thoughts on it towards the end here. What mistakes do you see that even experienced operators make when they expand?
Probably the biggest one is, expanding too fast, growing beyond your people. And so when I say that, you're 5 stores and say you're going to go buy, another 5 or 10 stores, that's hard, especially, the challenge is when you buy somebody like that, if they don't stay, I mean, that's just a lot of work, and you can, and so, to me, and even, say an acquisition where you're buying accounts, if you have a manager in a store, and I love buying accounts, by the way, it's just a great, it's an easy add-on typically, but if you don't have a manager that's really managing your store that great right now, don't add in anymore.
Don't do it.
And so just don't outgrow your people. Make sure that's a big part of any growth. And if you have the people that can support it, go for it. Go all out. And as long as you think it's a good business, a thriving business and things like that, go for it, So
for those people who want to expand, how do you know when your business is in good enough hands to be able to expand to a second?
You're very profitable at the first business, If your first store is not making money, why would you open a second one? Right? I mean, that's always made zero sense to me. I go, and I know operators right now have 6 stores and they've had one of those stores been losing money for 10 years. Well, why is it still open? Why shut it down? I mean, who cares about numbers like that? We've always said profit, we're very people oriented, but we're in it to make money, Pete. We don't make any, we don't apologize for that. we can only grow if we're making money. We can only hire more people if we're making money. We can't do any of that if we're not making money. And so it just makes no sense to, I've seen people do it. They're at one store, maybe it's a great store, and they all of a sudden they open a second. That second's not even profitable. They're opening a third and a fourth. Really?
I've seen it too.
Why would you
I've seen that.
Stop, slow down, wait for that second one to kind of get up, and then when that second one's there, open the third, and then you can build faster as you get more. Your base gets bigger. Yeah, you can do multi, but don't go from one and open 3 more. Right? That's dumb. Now, if you go from one and buy 3 good ones, that's different. Because then you're profitable. You got cash flow. You got those things coming in. That makes a huge difference.
Last question. What's your specific advice for someone in RTO looking to translate what they know into an adjacent opportunity?
We've done a lot of things that, we know what our customer is. So, again, if you're in rent-own, I'd probably look at R&R stores, very same customer base. I'd look at, we have a subprime, car finance company. And, I don't know, we looked at JD Byrider a long time ago. We feel we're good in that space. We know the customers. We know exactly who they are. We know how to treat them, and they're great people. They're hardworking people. And so if you want to do that, but at the same time, if there's an opportunity in multi-unit, anything that's making money that has good people, we've looked at quick serve restaurants, and I've always been kind of afraid of that business. We've not gone into that yet, and I wouldn't say we never would, but we've looked at it. And we kind of backed off. But the opportunity. I think at that point they want us to sign a lot of stores to open, and give me 5 to 10 to buy that are successful with with good leadership. I'll do that any day as long as it has that, and then we could move forward from that. Not to do a bunch, that's just scary if you don't know the business. I saw a lot of Aaron's, and I'm sure Rent-A-Center franchisees, Aaron's franchisees. I've seen a lot of them come in not knowing a lot about the business and just opened a bunch of stores right away. And you know what they do? They always grow really fast, but that they always forget about that other component, which is you got to collect that money. And, it's not all about sales. It's about the relationships and collections and things like that are every bit as important. So.
Well, that is the advice from Mark Connelly, someone who's very successful, but the truth is driven, focused, and very, very determined to say that he has a team behind him that is really, really making the difference. I'm so glad that you're on today. I really learned a lot more about you than I've ever really known. I know we had a couple of stories about Ernie Talley that we didn't throw in there. That might be good for Talley's sake. But, just talking about what you know and what you've been through and the ability to expand beyond the 4 walls of rent-to-own while doing and being successful at Arona is a great thing. And I want you guys to understand it is a chore to be a part of rent-to-own and still have those other businesses. So Mark, you and your group doing a great job. Listen, if you want to hear more stories about that, you are more than welcome. Go to the website, www.therrtoshowpodcast.com. Hit me up directly at Pete at the RTO Show Podcast. Listen, you can follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and YouTube where you're going to see this. Mark, I appreciate you being on the show today. An amazing guest. Thank you so much. And I will tell you guys, as always, get your collections low to get your sales high.